Happy Friday. Thank you for tuning in. This is Jim Bachman with the Brewers Association of Maryland. We are about to be joined by Kenny and Niles from the Brookeville Beer Farm for this week's Fermented Friday chat. Have a lot of really cool things to talk about with them, so we're looking forward to that. Just want to remind everybody that we have a beautiful weekend in the forecast, some nice cool days. So get out, support your favorite Maryland brewery. Maybe order some beer for pickup at a curbside location or maybe some delivery. Check with your favorite brewery and see how you can support them. Visit marylandbeer.org for updates on retail options at your favorite brewers and reach out to them directly. If you have questions during this chat, please feel free to throw them into the comments. We like to chat with you guys, bring your comments and concerns up, and maybe learn a little bit more about the breweries based on what you're into. So without further ado, Kenny, Niles, how we doing, gentlemen?
Doing well, Jim. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. Thank you for joining me this afternoon.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, great to be here.
Kenny, I owe you an apology. We were supposed to do this a couple weeks ago, and I double booked you, and you reminded me when I came to see you one afternoon. So thank you for the reminder and allowing me to clear the schedule up.
Hey, no worries, Jim. No worries.
So let's get right into it. Tell me a little bit about the Brookeville Beer Farm and what you guys are doing there and how you guys are doing during COVID.
So we're a farm brewery out of Montgomery County, Maryland, located in Brookeville, obviously. We are growing some of our ingredients on site, things like jalapenos, berries, some hops.
Blackberries.
Yeah, blackberries specifically.
Blackberry Ron.
Yeah. We started out in, I came on full-time in 2015, a year before the brewery opened. Niles joined, I think, 2000.
Yeah, early 2017.
Yeah.
I've been here just about 3.5 years now.
We specialize in making beer, classic beer flavored beer for people who like the flavor of beer. We do add twists to things. We've got some fun beers coming out this winter and fall season. Things like Patterson Footage, which was a collaboration with Brewbelly right up the street in Olney.
Yeah.
Sweet Potato Pie Ale is what we did.
A big hit last year. Pretty excited to make that one again.
Yeah. 200 pounds of yams and 100 pounds of toasted pecans that we do in-house go into the mash.
There was 50 pounds of marshmallows or something in there too.
Yeah, 50 pounds of marshmallows, a little bit of molasses.
Very cool. So should people be able to expect that right around, I don't know, Thanksgiving?
Yeah, actually, I think we're set to can it mid-October.
Yeah, there you go. Hit them right between the holidays, man.
What's that?
Hit them right between the holidays, right between Halloween and Thanksgiving. Get your sweet potato pie on.
Yeah. Exactly, yeah.
So you mentioned that you guys have a few hops that you're growing on the farm, but you also mentioned a lot of other produce and agricultural ingredients that you guys are growing there. Are you utilizing most of that in different brews on the rotation that you have?
We are, yeah. So we're currently growing Nugget, Magnum, and Chinook. We found that those three cultivars have the the most success for our land here. The past couple growing seasons have not been very friendly to hops, so we've had to do a lot of reorganization with the infrastructure out in the fields, which has been kind of a pain, stripping up rhizomes, replanting rhizomes. So next year we're hoping for a much larger harvest than what we were able to obtain this year.
And how frequently are you using the berries and jalapenos and things like that? Are they used mostly in you guys have a kitchen on site or a pizza kitchen on site? Do you use that in the culinary aspect of the work, or is it used in the brew house also?
Both. Yeah. So we're currently pickling jalapenos, the residual ones that were left over from what we didn't use in South of Sunshine, which is jalapeno honey blonde ale. And then the blackberries, so long as the patrons don't pick too many, we're trying to reap the harvest on that as well.
Yeah, we had a huge turnout of those this year, a big harvest, a lot more than we expected. Within a few weeks, we got almost 100 pounds off just the ones that we had right here. So,
wow,
pretty crazy.
That's awesome.
We got honey back there too. The bees on the farm are pollinating a lot of these things that we have planted, and then we have a couple hives in the back. And our resident beekeeper Amanda, she actually was just in here last week, kind of tending them and stripping the honey off the hives and spinning it in this cool little thing and collecting it. So we use that in a couple brews too.
Are those hives very productive for you?
Yes and no.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say we're like really making a ton of honey or anything, but I think she got about 3 gallons or so off of it. So
I don't know if
like
that's good, but it sounds
a
impressive to
lot.
me. So, uh, so let's talk a little bit about your statement about beer. You said you make beer that tastes like beer for people that like beer that tastes like beer.
Beer flavored beer for people who like the flavor of beer.
Okay, that's even better. That way less jumbled than my approach. What is motivating those decisions to make those styles of beer? Is it something that the clientele is asking for? Is it something that you prefer?
It's really just we want to make sure that we are maintaining beer in the flavor of beer. A lot of things out there right now, like it's easy to dump a pallet of puree into a tank and call it beer, right? Because you fermented a malt-based substance. And technically, yeah, it's still beer. I think the Germans would disagree with that, but for us, I think we still want to taste the beer and still be able to like play around with things, like with that Patterson footage or our flexible flyer, which is an oatmeal raisin cookie stout. We're using ingredients that we're familiar with, and then we have on hand, and how to think about them a little differently, and utilize them a little differently. So for instance, our flexible flyer, and this upcoming year for some of our winter beers, we're going to be introducing Wintery Mix. It's a snickerdoodle cookie beer that has no cookies in it, but it tastes like a snickerdoodle cookie, but it still tastes like beer. Like you still know that it's beer. And I think that's been kind of imperative.
Not a dessert drink.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
It's not like a one and done or like split a can with like 5 people kind of thing.
There you go. Well, I was going to ask because I recalled Flexible Flyer actually medaled at one of the Maryland craft beer competitions at some point. I think it was a couple years ago, and I think you guys also cleaned up with a few hazy style IPAs or something with some hardware one year. And I was just wondering, like how you're able to still make that claim about beer flavored beer when some of your less beer flavored beers are doing so well.
I guess, like I said, in the finish of these beers, like you still know that it's a beer. You still know that you're drinking a beer and not like a fruit smoothie.
Right.
And,
so the intent is there. Right.
Like that backbone. And I think I was on a call earlier this year with Kelly Dudek and a bunch of members from BAM about the competition this year, and what the idea was, how we were going to introduce things. And I think Kelly proposed, is it okay if we bring in like mead or ciders to this to kind of help promote, Maryland Meaderies, Maryland Cideries. And I believe it was Eric Gleason who was like, no, man, like keep beer. Like beer should be beer. And so, with hard seltzer coming in, which is a totally different animal, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. Beer is kind of taking on a new face in beverage manufacturing as a whole.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was on a call yesterday, and that discussion came up about kind of where the delineation at the federal level between different alcohol beverages comes up and how things fall into these categories through licensing. And it's really fascinating to understand how the codification of alcohol laws has kind of pushed different styles of beverages into categories that they may not really fit into. Right. So now we have these lump categories where, there are canned seltzers out there. There are canned ciders. Are they really beers? Well, by definition, they are, but only in some places. It's a weird, wild world, man.
Yeah.
Christian from Frank About Beer has got a couple of questions that we'll get into, but he did point out that he really loved the Brew for BAM beer that you guys did. I wanted to thank you again for your contribution through that. That was awesome. I had an opportunity to taste that beer, and it was phenomenal. I think you guys did a great job.
Thank you very much. That was a lot of fun to make.
Yeah, that was a good one. Farm Hammer. We've heard a lot of good feedback from it, so might have to bring that one back sometime soon.
I think we've got 1/6 still left on tap, so.
People are clamoring for the taste, man. You got to get it to them.
Yeah.
So let's jump right off the bat because you've got a pretty full board for us to talk about beer-wise today, and I want to make sure that we get some time to do that. And I think we can still keep telling the story of Brookeville the whole time we talk about these. So what's the first beer you want to share with people today?
First beer we're going to share is our Hoogle Culture, which is fest beer in cans.
Just canned this on Tuesday.
Yeah, this is just canned Tuesday.
Second batch. We canned it 2 weeks ago, and that one's pretty much all gone. So got another one in cans, and probably won't be here for long.
This is probably my favorite beer that we make. I love a good clean lager personally.
I have to agree.
Oktoberfest, man, like you can't go wrong. I mean, it is the holy holiday of beer, you know.
There's definitely no doubt about that. So tell us a little bit about the name, where the name comes from, and give us a quick description about the beer. That's a beautiful color.
Yeah, with the see right through it there.
Like you guys did that on purpose.
The name is kind of unique. We had someone come in and do some farming consultants for us early on, and she does a lot of work with like Baltimore City, like food deserts and stuff, and like helping with setting up like community gardens and things. And so she proposed this idea for us to compost with and also utilize in our hop rows, which is called Hoogle Culture. It's a German style of farming where people that have farmettes in Germany will set up these essentially windrows. So it's layers of wood, dirt, compost, and they're maximizing that growing surface area through these rolling hills. So they're able to get more crops per square acre. And I thought it was a very unique term. I never heard of it before. Phil thought it was great. So we went with it the first year, and, people were really receptive to the beer. And, it's always entertaining to watch people try to pronounce it.
Yeah.
On the taps listed outside, we have it listed as Hug Culture.
Aren't you supposed to proofread that?
But yeah, so it's a really unique name. The beer itself is it's clean, it's malty. It's got a little bit of a nutty character to it.
It's one of those good beer flavored beers. That's why Kenny and I are so excited for the beers we make this time of season. This one, Road Dust, our brown ale, we're going to be sampling that in a bit. And First Frost, our Dunkel we just brewed yesterday we're like super jazzed about, and some of our favorite beer seasons to drink this season rather.
Yeah, you're opening strong with something that tends to make itself most readily available on my palate. I really navigate towards the crisper, cleaner beers these days, so I'm happy to see that. And the season's absolutely right, Niles. You're so right on that. Like, there's nothing better for this time of year than a great crisp lager that's going to really kind of present everything it needs about malt, balance it out well with the hops, and then deliver this great finish.
Yeah, just all of a sudden, the past week and a half, these temperatures have started dipping on us. And I mean, Labor Day weekend was beautiful and warm. Still, it seemed like 3 days later, it was starting to feel like fall out there. So,
yeah, we were doing a tour of some of our Washington County members earlier this week, and as soon as the sun went just down past noon, we were like, oh man, you can tell it's fall. Like the crisp, bitter air was there, and you're like, oh, this is it.
Yeah, I got to remember the sweatshirt coming into work in the morning.
Matt from Calvert says, what's up, guys? Wants to say cheers to Kenny.
Hey, Matt, how's it going?
All right. What is the availability of this beer? Obviously, it's in cans. We watched you just pour it from there. Is that going out to distribution, or is that something you guys are keeping at the brewery itself?
We do have it out in distro.
And we do have it on tap, too.
Yeah, we do have it on tap, too.
Cans to go or glasses here outside at the brewery.
Yeah,
I think pizza pairing you recommend with
that? Sorry, what was that, Jim?
You have a pizza pairing you recommend with that?
Oh, man.
Yeah.
That's a good question. We recently updated our pizza menu, added a bunch of new ingredients. So.
Like 10 pizzas on there now, so there might be a couple.
Bobby in the comments is asking if you guys have revisited your recipe on the Oktoberfest, said that it has looked a little bit more fest beerish in the past, but this one appeared to be a little bit more like a Märzen with the red color. Or is this just a new version of your Oktoberfest?
No,
It's pretty much the same.
Pretty much,
I think,
yeah.
judging by when I held it up like that, that is making it look a little redder than it actually is in person. But
Bobby, I guess you'll just have to swing by and taste it for yourself, man. All right, so it's available in 16-ounce cans throughout Montgomery County. Where else are you guys distributing?
Anne Arundel, Howard, PG, DC, Frederick, a little bit in Carroll.
Cool. So lots of
that's
options
kinda
for
all
people to
over.
go out and find it.
Yeah, you should be able to find it. And if you can't, please give us a ring, and we'll be sure to send our sales rep out and touch base through the local liquor store.
And remember, that's the hug culture.
Yeah.
Give me 1 second.
Sure.
Sorry, everybody. I've got a 3-year-old running around with me today, and she is having a lot of fun trying to get on camera. Great. Yeah. So reach out to your favorite local liquor store. Make sure they're carrying the Brookeville stuff. And I imagine that their distribution footprint for the rest of these beers, if they're in cans, is going to look the same, right? You're going to be able to find them in the same stores?
For the most part, yeah.
mostly.
Great. Well, we'll get that out of the way up front, so I don't have to ask you every time where you can find them. All right. So following the Oktoberfest, are we going to stick with some seasonal stuff?
Yeah. Why don't we? Let's see what do we have here. Yeah, let's break into Road Dust.
Wood dust. All right, let me go grab it.
Sweet.
So
Yeah,
why
so
don't you tell us the story about this while Niles is grabbing it? Give us a little bit of background of the name and maybe talk to us a little bit about your artwork. The label artwork all carries this very nice caricature across all of the labels. Who do you guys work with to do that kind of stuff?
So we work with a couple different artists that will hand draw labels. The concepts we come up with in-house, and then we send them the idea like, hey, we're looking for this kind of scene type deal. And they send us a proof.
Oh, this way. Sorry.
They send us a proof, and we approve. Like, yeah, that's the general concept of what we're going for. And then they go through and they will hand draw it. So we do have prints of these things as well, which is really cool. Eventually we'll get some artwork hung up here, and maybe even have it available for sale for those who really enjoy it.
That's
This
great.
is one of my favorite labels. It's hard to really get it on camera well with all the shine, but it's a nice old pickup truck, and it's on a metallic label. So really
Yeah,
stands out.
that's a very good looking label.
Thank you.
I also like asking if people have beer rather than writing "clean me" or "wash me" in the road dust. So good stuff. What's the story about the beer?
So the beer itself is an old homebrew recipe of mine that I think Niles and I both old homebrewers, we kind of marry a lot of our recipes.
I met Kenny actually originally at the homebrew store. So
Maryland Homebrew, shout out Chris Anderson.
Yeah.
All the guys over there, thank you so much. But it's nutty. It's got a little bit of a roast character to it. It's just a nice northern style English brown ale. Really good for me. I like to drink this beer in October, November, especially sitting around an outdoor fire. It's the spot, man.
Yeah.
That's a good looking beer right there. So another one that you're kind of sticking to tradition with, if you're talking about, an English style brown, there's not a whole lot of deviation there in terms of what you're going to want to do and still maintain something that's going to be drinkable and fit that style category. So I think your description sounds great. Sounds pleasant. And again, that's totally appropriate for the cooler days that we're seeing ahead of us.
Yeah. We've played around with this recipe a couple times, throughout the past. That we've had it on tap here. We've recently upped the dark malt that goes into it, some of the chocolate roasted barley that we use in there, just to give it that really rich brown color. Recently switched up the yeast to a more a cleaner yeast. We're using the traditional English yeast, but we found that it was throwing off too much diacetyl and kind of muddying things up. So.
When you're talking about kind of making some alterations to a recipe like that, what is the objective when you're doing that? Is it seeking out what in your mind's eye is still the perfect approach for that beer, and you're like trying to hit every mark, or is it feedback that people are giving you, like, hey, I'd like this to have more roast, or you're hearing that from your staff there, or is this just like, this is what the beer should be, and we're still tweaking everything we can along the way to get it to like that penultimate thing that's never going to be attained?
Probably a little of both, I'd say. We take the feedback from the customers, and then us personally are like, I really think this one could be a little roastier next time, like a little more biscuit, or I think it was the chocolate on this particular beer, wasn't it? Just like it was changing around by just a couple of pounds here and there, and we decided like, yep, just like right there, 12 pounds or something is like right where we want it. It has the right color. It's just that little bit of chocolate note. So something really mainstream, but
I often find myself talking with brewers and production staff who are like, oh, we're making these tweaks because in our minds it's like it's so close, and then when they get there, they're like, oh, there's still something else we can do.
And that's how I feel about it a lot of the time. At least we'll sit down for our shift beer at the end of the day and be like, oh, it's really good, but like I could see it being one level up. We should try this next time.
How can we take it to that next level? I mean, nothing's perfection, right? It's always you're always tweaking something.
Yeah.
It's like a chef, you're always adding a little, like an extra pinch of salt, or taking this out or adding this in,
It can always be better, there's always room to grow.
So when all of you guys and gals out there watching this, think about the beer that you sit down to enjoy. When you think it's perfect, just know that there's still a pursuit to make it even better than it is right now.
All the time.
There you go. So how does the brown ale sell for you? I've had some experience with some of these traditional beers in the past, especially in the marketplace as it is now, where some people kind of like, oh, it's not super exciting or sexy enough for me to be, really, really behind it. You guys are specializing in these styles of beers. So is the brown ale something that you see people coming back for regularly?
Yes and no. We have, especially people around here who they enjoy traditional beer. They enjoy flavored beer. People that have lived overseas or, are visiting from overseas. We get a lot of those types of patrons in here, and, hearing their feedback, I think is what really drives us to make those tweaks, as well as our own, decisions. Yeah, decisions. In terms of sales, it sells pretty decently.
Yeah, especially this time of the year, of course. But
yeah,
I feel like it doesn't always. We've tried to make it, other times of the year, like early spring or late spring, early summer and stuff, and it definitely didn't seem to move as well. But I have had a couple of people ask me specifically, like, when are you making that one again? Like, that's my favorite beer. So, I guess everyone just has their favorite style, and we try to keep.
Can't
them all
go wrong
happy.
with that. And that actually brings up a good question that Christian asked earlier. He was curious from a production standpoint, maybe from a sales standpoint there at the brewery, which one of the beers in your lineup do you see being the one that's kind of like leading the way, leading the charge for everything else?
Interdependence.
That's what I was most likely going to say.
Yeah, Interdependence IPA, man. That and our Drinking Buddies Hazy IPA, New England IPA.
That one always gets a huge following whenever we release it, but we always have Interdependence on, and that one's just consistently, a big seller for us.
Yeah, we run a pallet of cans of that every 2 weeks of our flagship IPA, which is an old homebrew recipe of mine that, in collaborating with Niles, we've kind of tweaked it and made it what it is now.
Yeah, taken that one many different routes over the couple of years, and we're really happy with where we settled on it. And I really like it being our flagship IPA there, so I'm proud
That's
of it.
awesome. Would it be inappropriate to talk about that one now since you've got it on the lineup?
Not at all. I think what
Coming on up?
Yeah,
Switch them.
yeah, we can switch them. Yeah, let's go ahead and dive into Interdependence.
So tell us about the recipe. What's the thought behind this?
So this is a recipe that I had actually taken to Chris Anderson when I was working at the homebrew shop. And I was like, Chris, like I want to do like an all mosaic IPA. I'm not sure, I think Founders had just released like Mosaic Promises. First year that they released Mosaic Promises 6 years ago, I think. And I was like, I want to do an all mosaic IPA, but I don't want it to be like too light. I want it to have like a really rich like hop character and kind of capitalize on that apricot and like blueberry type notes that are coming from mosaic hops. And so I took her the recipe, and she was like, it looks good. It looks good. You're not going to know until you go and play with it. And that's kind of, I guess, really our philosophy here, Jim, is just being able to go and play with beer. Yeah, that's what we get paid to do all day, is just play with beer. Phil says, hey, I have an idea for something. You guys think you can make this happen? And then we collaborate, and we're like, yeah, we can make that happen. Fuck you, we can make that happen.
Yeah, and our big.
And I think we're going to talk about one of those yes, we can make it happen situations in a little while, right?
Yes, sir.
Very good. I don't want to let too many cats out of the bag, but very cool. So, how have you seen your recipes from your development when you were doing them as a home brewer, bringing them up to a not only scale that's obviously probably 100 times bigger, but how have you seen the recipe build out when you have more and more people who are kind of critiquing the outcome? Are you still satisfied with the way that you were doing it, or are you constantly thinking, "Hey, I've got another voice that I have to worry about when I'm thinking about brewing these beers"?
I think it's more just self-satisfaction, especially with this beer. This was my homebrewed house IPA that I had on tap all throughout college. I don't know, man. It's one of those things where you listen to the critique, and we'll tweak mash temp, or we'll tweak pH, or mineral levels in the water. Tweak the hop schedule a little bit, dry hopping schedules a little bit, and I think the last thing that we tweaked was the yeast, and now it's kind of come to what it is now, where it's brewing a batch of IPA. Okay, cool. Double batch of IPA today. Awesome. We'll be out of here in 9 hours.
Got it.
Yeah, we're settled on this one. It took a while, but it's really good.
Well, there you go. Your hard work in pursuit of perfection is bearing fruit, gentlemen.
I'm gonna say the dry hopping schedule on this one changed quite a bit over the years. Got it all down
I'm
now.
sure as new hops come into vogue, and as you have more opportunity to try stuff that people are producing in larger quantities, it's going to always give you the option to pursue something different.
Yeah, it's always been an all mosaic IPA. It's just the quantities and when we put some of the late addition hops in, or the dry hops, and the actual methods of doing it have changed significantly, and really just settled on something we can make with our eyes closed practically now. So
that's great.
Make it
and if you're
every week, every two. So
yeah, if you're packaging as quickly as you guys said you were, then I think that making sure that you can do it quickly and efficiently is the way to do it.
Santa Claus.
You guys are popular.
Sorry, just had a local hop farmer come in to drop off hops.
some fresh ingredients right through the door.
There you go. What local hop farm are you guys working with?
So this is a local guy right up the street here who's been growing hops for us for the past 3 years or so.
Very cool. It's not often that we get the agricultural cameo, so it's very neat to have it pop up in the middle of this chat.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is available 16-ounce cans through distribution, and you guys have it, I'm guessing, on draft pretty much all the time at the brewery.
Yeah, we do have it on draft all the time at the brewery.
Very good. It looks like it's leaning more towards a traditional American IPA than it is a New England or something like that. It's got a nice bright color, some good brilliance.
Yeah, nice a clear one. It's about 6.5%, 7%.
There you go.
Yeah, it has a nice grapefruit notes. We have quite a few people that think we actually put grapefruit in this beer, but it's no grapefruit at all. It just comes right from the hops. So
that's always a fun and educational opportunity when you're sitting there talking to somebody who's enjoying one of your beers, and they get to express what their sense is telling them, and you can kind of talk to them about why it's occurring and give them that background about, this is a hop character that you're describing. It's not truly fruit, but it does remind your brain of that. And they get that time to sit there and kind of think about, oh man, all of these ingredients really do play a key role in how this beer is going to be presented.
And like I was saying earlier, being able to play around with ingredients that we're familiar with and create these flavors that are reminiscent without actually having to add cookies or having to add pallets of fruit puree into something like an IPA, and people are like, man, this tastes like grapefruit. That's awesome. That's kind of what we're going for, is being able to utilize these different terpenes, flavors, coming from hops, as well as the malt itself, and looking at gravities and how much residual sugar is left over. We do use a German crystal malt in this beer, which I know there was a couple articles earlier this year, late last year, that were talking about, brewers aren't using crystal malts anymore, and the downfall of crystal malts, but we use tons of it.
Yeah, I don't think you guys are alone in that pursuit. It is interesting though, because kind of that English heritage from the IPA is becoming less and less predominant in the IPA marketplace here for certain. And I'm sure crystal malt doesn't find its way into a whole lot of New England IPA recipes and the stuff that's flying off the shelf and that people are cranking out at big volumes.
Yeah. I mean, the hazy IPA is like, they're a different animal. It's a different process of brewing. They're interesting, and they sell well. But there's also been that recent call for West Coast IPAs, bitter bombs to come back, which has been a lot of fun to get back to. Experimenting with New England's over the past couple of years and really learning, like, okay, the biotransformations that go on with the polyphenols, and then coming back to like what we knew 10 years ago as an IPA.
It's a good expedition for everybody to go out and explore a whole bunch of different stuff, and then all of a sudden they're like, hey, you remember that thing that we passed up a while ago? Why don't we go back and see if we can find that? And then it's going to spur some new creation to come out, and everybody's going to be excited about that.
Yeah, exactly.
It's kind of the fun thing about this industry and about the beer that Maryland brewers are producing, is that it really gives people an opportunity to try a whole lot of different approaches to these great, delicious beverages.
Most definitely.
What's the next beer that you would like to talk to people about?
You want to grab a sample off the tank?
Yeah. So we don't have cans of this one. We just brewed it a couple weeks ago. It's still in the tank. We'll be canning it 2 weeks from now. So I'm gonna go grab a sample off the tank.
This is our
start lining up now, y'all. The quad.
Yeah, this is the Belgian quad. We're looking at about 10%. So it's a kind of amberish color, really nice for this time of year. Higher alcohol, again for the colder weather coming in. The name for this beer actually was dubbed by patrons. So from people who were at the Red Shedman Beer Festival back in 2016, I think it was. We had one half-barrel kegs when I was still running pilots here. And people were like, oh, have you tried Brookeville's quad? Have you tried the quad? And so we're like, hey, man, screw it. Like, we'll just name it the quad. It's a really fun beer to make. I just came in last Sunday and injected candy syrup into fermentation. And, it took right back off. So it's very dry. Usually finishes very dry with an apparent sweetness from the malt character. We'll dive into how this batch is doing in just a second here.
Yeah, that's a very interesting approach. I don't know that I've ever heard of. So I guess is it traditional for a quad to have the candy syrup put in secondary, or is that something that's normally done on the hot side?
From my talks with the technical teams over at Brewing Science Institute and with some of the folks at White Labs, it's best to introduce sugars, simple sugars like that, during fermentation. So we brewed this, I think, was it last Thursday? Thursday or Wednesday or something?
Just about a week ago.
And then a couple days into fermentation, we'll introduce these simple sugars. So the way the yeast work is they have to secrete enzyme to break down malt sugars into their consumable sugars, the very simple sugars. Whereas something like sucrose, glucose, fructose just kind of permeate the cell wall, so I don't have to work for that sugar. So the analogy I used to give people at the homebrew shop is, you take your kid out to dinner, right? Like if you were to take a 3-year-old out to dinner, you give them dinner and dessert at the same time, what are they going to eat first? dessert, right? Yeah, the
Dessert all the way, man.
Something they want to eat. And so so yeast kind of work the same way. You want them to work for that dessert. And so as they start to ferment that malt sugar, they're creating alcohol, and then you give them that simple sugar, and it really kicks them into overdrive. And we'll cut the glycol on it just so that the Belgian yeast like really pumps those esters, and are able to create the rich notes of like plum, stone fruits, cherry, things like that.
Yeah. When you come in,
So you're giving the yeast its dessert, but you're also requiring it to do a whole heck of a lot of work in order to get it.
Yes, yeah.
I like that. So how's this shaping up?
fresh off the tank, hasn't a little green yet, hasn't cleared out yet.
Yeah, seems a little green, a little warm. I think fermenter's reading
71 or 72 last I saw.
Looks like 72.
Got up to 80 degrees though at the heat of fermentation though, so a little warm for those Belgian phenolics to get kicked off.
Sounds like it's chugging along, and it's going to be producing some great aromas.
Yeah, this one is projected to come out 8.5%, almost 9%. So
that's great. And you said you're going to have that in cans in probably about 2 weeks.
Yeah, about 2 weeks.
We'll be canning it September 29th or September 30th. Yep.
Very cool. That's one of the things that I find to be very interesting about your labels. Can we talk a little bit about some of the labels that you have there? You guys put your brew date and your package date on your labels, correct?
We do, yes.
Can you do you have an example of one of those in front of you just to kind of show people if they haven't seen it?
Yes, actually. Brewed on canned on right here. This is the road dust. If you can see that. But
I like that a lot. A lot of people just get to see the package date. They don't necessarily get to see like when the beer was actually produced. So I think that's pretty cool.
It's we're big on fresh beer, so brew fresh, drink fresh. Yeah. Unless it's like a sour or something, then obviously like let it mellow.
Or a barrel age or something. We do have a barrel age going on this next run that's been out there in with those rye barrels for about 3 months now. So
yeah, Sagamore rye barrels, Pleasant Country. Shout out Thomas Gideon.
Yeah, gonna be racking that over next week onto some fresh maraschino cherries.
Ooh,
that's it on the same run with the quad. So
that's interesting.
Excited about.
I was going to ask if you were using a local rye barrel, so I'm glad to hear that you selected Sagamore. Good barrel to use.
Those are
Sagamore makes good barrels, and Baltimore Spirits Company, shout out Eli, has hooked us up a couple times with some of his rye barrels from Epic Rye, which is an excellent rye. If anybody's a rye drinker out there, I'm not big on them because they're usually gasoline, but I gotta say, Baltimore knows how to do rye right.
Yeah, they've got it down, that's for sure. So if you're just now tuning in, you need to keep in mind that there will be a release of the quad in 2 weeks, and apparently some barrel aged goodness is going to be released at the same time. So start planting your flags, get in line, bring your lawn chair, do whatever you need to do, but get there and make sure that you have what you need to walk out of there with some delicious beers. I see 2 more beers on the list.
Yeah, let's.
Well, I guess technically 1 more beer.
Well, yeah, technically only 1 more beer.
Does that one count as a beer?
Something that we drink regularly during our shifts here. We don't, rules in the brewery. One is to come in on time, show up to work on time, and be ready to work. Second is don't care what you do outside of here, but don't get messed up on the job and don't come in messed up. And third is have fun. So following those rules, we do drink non-alcoholic beer that we've recently been producing called Roadie. One for the road kind of deal. Don't know if that's legal, by the way. Don't drink it on the road. Not sure the legality of that, guys. But this is it's been a fun project. COVID has allowed us to, I guess, really focus on R&D back in the brewery. Jim, you still there?
Oh no, we're still live. Maybe they can see us. But
yeah, we'll keep going.
We're taking the show over here.
Oh,
hopefully you can still see and hear us. This is our Roadie, our non-alcoholic IPA, hoppy, non-alcoholic. One of my favorite labels, actually. It's brewed with all organic malt, as you see that stamp right there. And yeah, like Kenny was saying, it's pretty nice to have a whole tank of this and just, go over, pour myself a little glass in the middle of my shift and have some nice little hot tea, non-alcoholic beer.
You've got to like the opportunity to enjoy delicious flavors that are not going to intoxicate you when you're working in a brewery. Keep things safe, keep everybody on the straight and narrow, and be good. So how is it selling for you? Is it kind of surprising that you're seeing a good volume of sales with it?
We honestly are. Yeah. We're seeing a lot of places order before it's even brewed. Which is really cool to see.
Getting consumers calling in and asking about it if they could, reserve a case. Like, we didn't have a can, we had it scheduled, and certain people were like, I want a case, have it ready for me. So definitely seeing more demand for it in the market.
That's great to hear that. I am blown away that you guys are not only producing a non-alcoholic beer, but that it's something that's in your regular rotation and that people are coming back and asking for. That's really cool.
Yeah, it's quickly getting there. We actually just brewed another batch today, so I think that was the 4th one we've brewed, and we're definitely, getting the subtle nuances on the differences of brewing this compared to all our other brews, and it's getting, like you said, in regular rotation. So it's pretty cool.
Is there some scientific background you can give that will maybe not give up a trade secret, but how a non-alcoholic beer that tastes like a beer and feels like a beer is produced? I've only experienced one from a Connecticut brewery, and I was blown away.
That was our inspiration for it. Just trying to figure out how they're able to produce a beer that still tastes like beer but doesn't have alcohol. We do match the same as we would any other beer. We still boil the same as we would any other beer. Fermentation is really where it comes into play, and how we are dealing with mitigating yeast taking off and it not taking off. The type of yeast we throughout COVID, like I said, we did a lot of research and development. And we experimented with a couple different types of yeast, and we settled on one that we do use relatively frequently here, which was kind of beneficial. Being able to look at this beer as a regular IPA with a few minor tweaks.
Well, I appreciate the answer. I didn't want to put you in a position where you had to give up any kind of real background stuff, but I've had a former colleague of mine went to California after working here in Maryland at a brewery, and when she got there, she started working for a company that was taking a beer, brewing it, producing a beer as normal, and removing alcohol from it so that they could actually replace it with THC compounds in another state. So they were producing drinkable cannabis products that were alcohol free, so that there was no big worry from the TTB or anything like that once the product was complete. So I thought that was very interesting, their approach. And I don't know exactly what the science was behind it. I think it involved some very expensive equipment, but I'm always curious how you make a really good tasting beer non-alcoholic. So maybe someday I'll come over and I'll just ask you to whisper it into my ear.
Yeah, Jim. Trust you know.
Yeah, that's really cool. So the flavor experience, the palate, it's all there.
It is.
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, it definitely is a little bit different. I mean, I don't know how to explain it. It ferments a little bit, so it is still under the 0.5% ABV that
Sure.
we're allowed to TTB. So it doesn't quite have the same depth of a beer, but with the dry hops that we put in it and just the grain we use in the mash, we've got it pretty close. We're pretty happy with the flavor that we are getting. We're again always tweaking it, and today we did some different things on this batch we brewed that we didn't do on this one that's in cans we're drinking right now. So
There you go.
we'll out, but
Man, the continued pursuit of excellence. You guys just don't give up.
and it's real confirming to see people asking about it and asking for it. So we kind of first got a taste of people saying this was going to happen like 2 years ago. People were like, "Oh, non-alcoholic beer is going to be a big thing pretty soon," and we never saw it. And I feel like we're just kind of beginning to see it maybe take off. So we're hoping so, at least.
When I was working for a brewery, my wife used to always say, "You guys need to come up with a super low calorie, low alcohol IPA for people that want to drink a real beer and have the experience of great hop flavor." And I was like, yeah. Someday, it might come up. It might be in fashion. And now it's like everybody seems to be very health conscious. I know that one of the things that we talk about with, stagnating sales in terms of overall beer share in the marketplace is the millennial drinker is much more health conscious maybe than some of us older millennials or the generation prior to us. And I think that health consciousness, if you can embrace that and find a way to cater products towards that buyer, you're going to be doing very well for a while.
Yeah, it's interesting, man. Grain out is much different than graining out like an Oktoberfest or an IPA. I'll tell you that much.
Very cool. What was the inspiration to leave this on the hazy side? Is it to keep it kind of in the wheelhouse of what's kind of taking off in terms of popularity right now with the beer trend, or is it something that's specific to that recipe?
A little bit of both, I guess.
Okay.
Really like trying to cater towards hop characteristics, making sure that this tastes like a beer, giving it that malty kind of backbone that allows you to like imagine that it is a beer.
Sure.
But not get you messed up,
Got it.
So I could go into a whole freaking dialogue about like just this beer alone. And
well, I imagine if you were to bright filter this or something like that, you'd be stripping out a whole lot of essence that makes it feel like a beer to the drinker too. So you wouldn't want to necessarily go at taking away too much substance when it comes to body or aromatics. So very cool.
Right.
Understandable.
Yeah, that is kind of one of the parts that we're still playing around with too, like the haziness. We actually did, we cracked the can of the first batch we made and it had fallen pretty clear, which, we haven't exactly decided, I guess, on the clearness of the beer we want. Whether we want to keep it hazy or let it fall clear. But it has the potential to clear up and we might work towards that in the future, I guess.
So do you see that? Is this a foot in the door for maybe a series of non-alcoholic products or something that may be available?
Most definitely, yeah. We're already starting to develop the next 2 to 3 recipes.
Oh, that's great, man.
Yeah, for this non-alcoholic brand itself. So the brand itself will be called Roadie, as in one for the road. And we're looking at doing a couple different varieties. We'll see. We'll see. It's all a work in progress.
Hey, man, that's awesome. I appreciate kind of the peek behind the curtain a little bit, but we never want to put you guys in a position where you're overcommitting or giving up too much of what you're doing if it's not something that you want to share. So thank you for sharing that one with us and kind of telling us the story behind it, because that's really, really fascinating stuff.
Sure, absolutely, yeah.
And you piqued my fascination when I came to talk to you about the Brew for BAM a couple of weeks ago. And I'm going to go ahead and just talk about it because it's the last one on the lineup. But you're making a phenomenal hard seltzer, and I believe that night I actually had to text you and say I hate admitting this, but you did a great job.
Well, thanks, Jim.
Thank you, Jim.
Great humbling. We've been working at this one pretty hard for
2 years now.
Yeah,
it's been 2 years.
We just got into canning it, but we've had it in the tap room for a while now, and several iterations, and we've really just dialed it in. And we even have a specific tank back there we always put it in, which we had some modifications done to really, it's kind of specific for brewing these alternatives.
So for people that aren't necessarily familiar with some of the trends that are happening, and even for people who are, it's no secret that hard seltzer is becoming a very big segment inside of what's considered the beer marketplace. There are a lot of reasons for that. Some of that has to do with dietary restriction for people who may have to keep up with like a gluten-free diet, or some people are just seeking options that may have lower calories and lower carbohydrates. So can you tell us a little bit about what differentiates this seltzer from the beer lineup in terms of maybe not necessarily ingredient basis, unless there's something specific about what helps with it being gluten-free rather than a beer, but also maybe talk about why why you guys had the mentality that this needed to be something on your line.
So this started, back in January of 2018. Phil and his wife Grace came back from a trip in Florida, and they visited MIA Brewing. And MIA is they're kind of the ones that like really started this stuff. This is before Truly and White Claw. This is before like the seltzer craze. MIA is kind of the original gambit here. And they met with the brewery owner, and the guy was super, super personable and said, this stuff is about to take off. This is the stuff you guys want to start making. And so, Niles and I started wrapping our heads around it, trying to figure things out. Like, how do we ferment a sugar-based substance that's still TGB compliant, but not gluten like riddled, not malt sugar. And so we came up with an idea. We started playing around with fermentations. The first one that we did was Brookeville Debutante, which, if some of you guys remember that was a lemon lime hard seltzer. That was interesting. I remember we did have it on in 2018 because Phil and Grace got married June 23rd, 2018, and the reception was here at the brewery, and our farm manager, Phil, was drinking that nonstop. So Phil. It was interesting. The second one we released was a lemon raspberry, called Farm Girl, and we were getting reports of this on Untapped, like getting dinged for stuff like 2.0, like what the hell is this, clear beer? Like how, I don't even understand what this is, Yeah. And so as things started to catch on, we were using real fruit, and we're using this sugar base and diluting it back, and fermenting high gravity, different types of yeast, and just trying to really wrap our heads around how do we make this stuff work, like to the point of where we could possibly contend with somebody like White Claw or Truly and make like a locally crafted product, and working with local Maryland companies to be able to do so. And so now we're at the point where we are working with local Maryland companies to be able to produce the flavors of seltzer that we're doing. And we figured out fermentation with specific types of yeast that are happening in about 2.5, 3 weeks. So it's again, a completely different animal when it comes to fermentation. Yeah. Just like the non-alcoholic stuff.
Keeping those yeast happy is one of the biggest things that we're having to figure out. Just putting yeast and sugar together apparently doesn't always give the yeast what they want. So, we've been playing it with other things that we put into the boil and some other nutrients to keep the yeast happy and really get them chugging along and making this alternative for us.
So is Chillin' the brand? Is the brand of all of the seltzers called Chillin' now, or was that just the release?
Yeah, that's the actual brand itself. It's called Chillin' Hard Seltzer.
And what flavor variety is this one that you guys are enjoying today?
This is a black Oregon cherry.
Yeah, Oregon cherry is what this one is.
Very cool.
We've done a peach, an orange, and a mango.
Yeah, I enjoyed the Mexican mango, and I actually drank the last one last week. It was phenomenal. Again, I hate having to admit that to you, Kenny, but I really, really enjoyed it, man.
Yeah, there's not a lot of glory in making it, but
yeah, I was gonna say, just like I said to you, Jim, like there's not a lot of glory in making seltzer, but you know what, man, if it makes the consumer happy and we're able to learn something as brewers, because you brew more than just beer, right? Like, you can brew coffee, you can brew tea, you can brew whatever.
Touching on that note about us making beer flavored beer, we do make a lot of that, and then sometimes we make some other things too that me and Kenny aren't necessarily drinking every day. But
if you're able to answer that demand for your consumer, that's really what matters. And if you have people that are asking for it, and you can do it well, and you can do it in a way that showcases that you stand behind the quality of the product, then there's no shame at all in producing something that's going to kick ass and sell.
Yeah, exactly. That's where we're at. That's what we see what the people want, and we're keeping them happy. And thankfully, we're able to keep ourselves happy and make some good beer that we enjoy too. So, but yeah, we just brewed another one of these on Monday. So
yeah.
we're kind of flipping around with a couple flavors right now. I think we had talks about a watermelon lime or
Yeah, I think we were talking about watermelon, raspberry lime, or maybe doing another round of peach, maybe even peach mango. So
that, and then after that, we were playing with ideas of what maybe a holiday flavor of some kind. So got a couple random ideas for that, some fruity spices or something for the holiday season. So we'll see where we settle on that one.
So, while I'm thinking about this hard seltzer option, like how far are your flavor options going in terms of exploration? Are you guys going to stick to things that are, fairly like fruity and forward? Are there options out there for like savory style seltzers? What do you know about the market research there?
we've been thinking about it, man. Like, because we're talking about seltzer, so there's your standard, orchard berry, tropical kind of flavors, but we've been really thinking about maybe expanding into seasonality, making seasonal seltzers, which sounds ridiculous. Yeah, if you were to said this to me back in 2018, like seasonal seltzer, what the hell is that? I would have looked like, crazy. But I think we're starting to toss around some ideas of flavor and being able to play with flavor, and do an efficient job at it, and something that we're both proud to make.
That's great. And I see a couple of comments popping up. Abby and Kelly are both very excited to try some of your new stuff.
Awesome. Hey, Kelly. Hey, Abby.
Yeah, hey.
I'm having a meltdown here, so I apologize. Can you go ahead and let people know kind of what the next couple of months might look for Brookeville, or look like for Brookeville, and what you guys are up to?
Yeah, absolutely, Jim. So next couple months, we've got, like I said earlier, Patterson footage coming out, sweet potato pie ale, Wintery Mix, going into cans this year, which is Snickerdoodle cookie beer.
A couple of cookie beers, a couple of, Christmas flavors. We've had talks about doing some mixed 4-packs of cookie 4-packs. So I think we have one more recipe to settle on, and then we'll have that sorted out. So
currently searching for amaretto barrels. If anybody has a line on amaretto barrels, please reach out to me, Kenny at brookevillebeerfarm.com. It'd be much appreciated. We've got
first frost coming out pretty soon. We'll have that in cans and on tap, probably in about a month or so.
New seltzers and a couple more new non-alcoholic beers as well.
Oh man, you guys have a lot going on.
Yeah, constantly tweaking, Jim. Constantly tweaking stuff.
Well, keep it up. Refrain from calling yourself tweakers.
Yeah, no, sorry. Didn't mean to get. We're not in the Midwest, so I figured it was safe here.
Fair enough. All right. So for everybody that tuned in this afternoon, thank you very much. Kenny, Niles, it's been great talking to you guys. You guys are doing great stuff over there. It's exciting to hear about these really cool approaches you guys have to some novel and new things that are good for the market. So I appreciate that. And if you have any questions about what's going on with Maryland Beer, visit us, marylandbeer.org. Learn all about the Brewers Association of Maryland, all of our members. And shouts out to the guys at the Brookeville Beer Farm. You guys are doing a great job. Make sure you support their beer. People can come in and do curbside pickup with you, carry out, all kinds of great stuff, right?
Absolutely, yeah. You can place an order online, or you can come up and order. We'll deliver to your car, or if you want to enjoy the patio space, we also have patio space outside, as well as our lawn space.
Perfect. And don't pass up the pizza there. It's delicious.
Thank you so much, Tim.
Thank you.
All right, guys, have a safe weekend. I look forward to sitting down with you both and having a beer soon.
Sounds great. Yeah. Looking forward to it.
All right, talk later.
Cheers.